Welcome all of you to the video lecture series on computational fluid dynamics, development, application and analysis. This lecture is on finite difference method for boundary conditions and numerical criteria, which corresponds to the topic 5 on computational heat conduction. The details about this lecture can be found in the chapter 5 of the companion book. After completing the physical law-based finite volume method, where the algebraic formulation was presented for internal grid point, which was represented by yellow circles or grid points which were represented by in yellow color in the previous lecture. So note that the algebraic formulation was presented in the previous lecture for the internal grid points, whereas in this lecture, the algebraic formulation will be presented for the boundary grid points which are represented by blue circles. So we had used finite volume method to derive algebraic equation for yellow circle, and in this lecture we will derive linear algebraic equation for blue circles using finite difference method. I mentioned in my previous lecture that even in most of the present day finite volume method based CFD software, they have to use finite difference method to implement the boundary condition. Along with the finite difference method for boundary condition, in the present lecture we will also discuss certain criteria that we have to follow while solving numerically. These are called as numerical criteria. We'll discuss two criteria, stability criteria and stopping criteria. So this lecture is focused on these two topics, finite difference method for boundary condition and numerical criteria. So after presenting the algebraic formulation in these first two topics, the next lecture will present the solution methodology. First for a uniform grid using flux-based methodology, and then coefficient of linear equation-based methodology will be presented on a non-uniform grid. So with this, we started with the simplest form of the grid generation, the Cartesian grid generation, which is uniform grid generation. Later on in this topic, I will present the non-uniform grid also. After you go through this lecture, you are trained enough to develop a CFD course or software for computational heat conduction in Cartesian geometry. This is the mind map corresponding to the book, and after completing the physical law-based finite volume method, in this lecture, the finite difference method for boundary condition and stability and steady-state convergence criteria will be presented. Let us start with finite difference method for boundary condition. As mentioned earlier, we do not have a finite volume method to derive the algebraic equations for the boundary grid points. Let us take a general heat transfer problem where we have the various types of thermal boundary conditions. On the left wall, we have a constant wall temperature. On the bottom wall, we have an insulated boundary condition. On the right wall, we have a constant heat flux boundary condition. And at the top wall, we have a convective boundary condition. There at the wall, Q conduction is equal to Q convection. I mentioned in my previous lecture, among the various types of boundary conditions, the constant wall temperature is called as Dirichlet boundary condition. Insulated and constant heat flux, these are like gradient type of boundary conditions where the normal gradient is 0 in insulated and normal gradient at wall is equals to some constant in the constant heat flux boundary. And this boundary condition, convective boundary condition, is a linear combination of the value of temperature at the wall and the normal gradient, and this is called as the Robin or mixed type of boundary. So this figure represents the uniform grid generation, which I have presented in my previous lecture. A uniform grid generation is like you draw equidistant horizontal and vertical lines, and you locate the grid points, which is analogous to pixels in video camera, at the centroid of those control bodies. Now, the points that is located at the centroid are called as internal grid points, and I had also shown that to implement the boundary condition, we have certain points at the boundary, which I had represented with a different color, blue color. So for the yellow circles in the previous lecture, the algebraic formulations was presented. And in this lecture, the algebraic formulation for this blue circle will be given. So at the left wall, we have a constant wall temperature as shown here. But all these blue circles, when we do the programming, we just give a constant value of temperature which is given to us. So this wall temperature is given to us in a problem. And note that this wall temperature is not varying with time. So in this wall, there is no variation of temperature in space as well as time. Whereas if you consider the other boundary conditions, all in the insulated boundary conditions, we have the Qy is equal to 0, conduction heat flux in the vertical direction is equal to 0. Now if you apply Fourier law of conduction, it is equal to minus k dt by dy is equal to 0. Basically, we have to obtain a linear algebraic representation of dt by dy, because minus k dt by dy is equal to 0 gives you dt by dy is equal to 0 at this bottom wall. Basically, we have to obtain an algebraic representation of dt by dy at j is equal to 1. So to do that, if you use a first order forward difference based on finite difference method, then you get temperature J at J plus 1 minus temperature at J divided by the distance between the 2 points. Using the first order forward difference, one-sided differential, we get T point ahead, which is Ti, 2 minus Ti, 1 divided by the distance between the two, which is delta bar by 2. Note that the width of the control volume in the horizontal direction is delta x, in the vertical direction is delta y. Now this is about the insulated boundary condition using first order forward difference in the y direction. Now this constant heat flux boundary condition is on the right wall, and for the right wall the heat flux that is involved is in the x direction, Qx. So here for the constant heat flux, the expression that we use, we have at the wall Qx is equal to minus k dt by dx. Now here to calculate dt by dx, I have mentioned in my earlier lecture that whenever you have to calculate any gradient, and all the gradients that you encounter, basically the gradient is coming from heat flux, and by Fourier law of heat flux, Fourier law of heat conduction, the heat flux are expressed in terms of normal gradient of temperature. If you calculate normal gradient of temperature at blue circles, for all these blue circles, you can observe that the yellow circle is only on one side, not on the other side. Like on the left wall, the neighboring yellow circle on the right is on the right side. For the right wall blue circle, the yellow circle is on the left side. Similarly, for the bottom wall, the yellow circles are, or the internal grid points are above, and for the top ones, the internal grid points are below. So whenever we have to represent the normal gradient in heat flux type of, wherever we have a heat flux boundary condition by Fourier law of heat conduction to calculate normal gradient, we have to do what we call as one-sided differential, because we express the normal gradient at boundary by taking the values of yellow circles only on the one side. So here we have this is the positive x direction. Then to calculate dt by, because to calculate qx, if you want to apply minus k dt by dx. So to calculate dt by dx on all these blue circles, you have neighboring yellow circles which are behind, not ahead. This is what is called as backward differencing. So if you do a first order backward differencing, this is called as I max. Note that we have 7 points here. I is equals to 1 for all these points, I is equals to 2 for all these points. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. This is corresponding to the maximum number of grid points in the x direction, I max. So we have to calculate dt by dx at I max. To calculate dt by dx I max, if you apply the backward differential, you get T I max minus T I max minus 1 divided by the distance between these 2 points, which is delta x by 2. So using the first order backward differential, we obtain minus k dt by dx by first order backward differential is equals to, here I have written QW as minus because the heat flux is in the negative x direction. Note that while substituting the value of QW which is given, I will substitute a positive value. Only the magnitude here I will substitute. So I am considering the direction since it is in the negative x direction. So So from this, we obtain an expression for the temperature at Imax as a function of Imax minus 1. Note that here, by insulated boundary conditions, the expression that we are getting is temperature at all this blue circle is a function of this yellow circle. Whereas in this case, the temperature of this blue circle is equal to this yellow circle values, the respective yellow circle values, plus some value. Because here you can get T Imax is equal to T Imax minus 1 plus QW delta X by 2K. So there is an additional term which appears as compared to the insulated. Because insulated is just equal to this value. Here this blue circle is equal to this yellow circle plus some non-zero value which is equal to QW delta X by 2K, which I will show you in the next slide. Finally, to implement the convective boundary condition at the top wall, we are assuming that in this case, the heat is getting transferred from this solid to the fluid which is outside. So we consider the convective heat transfer in the positive y direction. So that way, to calculate from Newton's law of cooling, Qi by convection is equals to H temperature at wall minus T infinity, because we are assuming that the temperature at wall is greater than T infinity. So we are considering Qi in the positive y direction. So this is equal to minus K dt by dy. Now to calculate dt by dy for all these blue circles, we apply first order backward differentiation. Using first order backward differentiation, we can write, so dt by dy at this is equal, this is corresponding to j is equals to j max. To obtain dt by dy at j is equals to j max, by first order backward differentiation, we will get a formula T at g max minus T at g max minus j max minus 1 divided by the distance between these 2 points, which is delta y by 2. Note that in this slide, we are using a first order forward or backward differentiation. You can also use a second order scheme, which I had presented in the topic on finite difference method, to get a more accurate representation of the boundary condition, more accurate implementation of the boundary condition. So in this slide, I have shown you the expression, but the final expression that is used to calculate the blue circle value, that will be presented in the next slide, which is here. So at the left wall, which is the west wall, which corresponds to x equals to 0, temperature is Tw. So we get a formula where all the blue circles for I is equals to 1, which is corresponding to the left wall, for all j, which will correspond to all the blue circles in the left wall, temperature, this Tw is, let us suppose it's given that it is 100 degrees centigrade, then you put here 100. That way you give value to all the blue circles on the left wall. Now on the right wall, which is the east wall, which corresponds to x equals to L1. L1 is the length of the plate and L2 is the height of the plate. So for here, we have a constant heat flux boundary condition where we have considered the sign of the heat flux, which is in the negative x direction. So this is the expression for that. And finally, after the first order backward differentiation discretization, note that on all this left hand side, basically I am getting an expression for blue circle. Temperature at I max comma j is a function of I max minus 1 plus some non-zero value. In an insulated boundary condition, which is bottom wall, y is equal to 0, this is the blue circle value as a function of the neighboring nearest neighbor of corresponding to yellow circle. For the convective boundary condition, here again we are getting temperature at J max as a function of J max minus 1. Note that here all these values which are there in the left hand side, our objective is to obtain the blue circle value corresponding to the nearest neighboring yellow circle value. Now note that to make this point clear, I have given a separate name of those yellow circles which are involved while implementing the boundary condition. So in the previous slide, these yellow circle values which are involved in to implement the boundary condition, I have shown you by a different name. Note that the yellow circles I am saying, all the yellow circle I am calling as internal grid points, and there are two types of internal grid points, interior and border. Now the symbols both are yellow circles, but there is a difference. the border yellow circle, you can see it has a thicker black line at the boundary. So the yellow circles with thicker black line, you can see that when you whichever boundary has a normal gradient type of boundary condition, whichever boundary conditions involves heat flux, like insulated involves Qy, constant heat flux involves Qx, convective boundary condition involves Qy. All these boundary conditions which is involving normal gradient of temperature, these are called as these are note that although we call this two as Neumann and this as Robin, but uh, all these three can be called as non-Dirichlet boundary condition. Although we have three different types of boundary condition: Dirichlet, Neumann, and Robin. So if we talk of non-Dirichlet, then the Neumann and Robin are non-Dirichlet boundary conditions. So note that for both Robin and Neumann, which are the non-Dirichlet boundary conditions, you end up with an algebraic equation where the blue circle value is a function of the nearest border value while calculating the normal gradient. So note that these border values are yellow circle values. Now we have already an equation for this border yellow circle from finite volume method, which was discussed in the previous topic. And this yellow circle values with respect to time in an unsteady simulation, their values change, they evolve with time. So since the yellow circle values are changing with time, and in this we have obtained an expression. So this yellow circle values, which are border values, their values are changing with respect to time because they are the part of the internal grid points. So the change in the yellow circle value lead to a change in the blue circle value. So the consequence of this is, with respect to time, the boundary point temperature, so all this blue circle at boundary, note that their values will change with respect to time. Whereas for a Dirichlet boundary condition with a time-wise invariant value of temperature, if you have given 100 degrees centigrade here, note that these values are not changing with respect to time. Whereas all the non-Dirichlet boundary conditions, the fact that the blue circle is a function of yellow circle and yellow circle values change, yellow border circles, which is changing with respect to time, the blue circle values also changes with respect to time. So note that for non-Dirichlet boundary conditions, the boundary point values evolves with time. So that was the first part of this lecture, finite difference method for boundary conditions, where I have presented a heat conduction problem with various type of boundary conditions and demonstrated the algebraic formulations where the boundary values, the blue circle values, boundary values was expressed in terms of border values, blue circle was represented in terms of neighboring yellow circles, and I finally mentioned that non-Dirichlet boundary condition, the boundary point values evolve with respect to time. Now let us go to the numerical criteria. I have mentioned that basically I'll present two types of numerical criteria: stability criteria and stopping criteria. Now, what is stability criteria? Let me first explain it. I have mentioned in my previous lecture that when we do time-wise discretization, there are three methods: explicit method, implicit method, and Frank-Nicolson method. Now, in an explicit method, we end up with an equation where, let us suppose, if there are 25 yellow circle values, you get 25 algebraic equation, and in each equation there is only one unknown. So if you have such an equation, you can solve each equation independently. So this is about explicit method. If you use an implicit method, if you have 25 linear algebraic equations, in each equation there are not more than 5 unknowns. So why 5 unknowns? Because our algebraic formulation is such that to calculate temperature at a particular point, it is a function of north, south, east, west neighbor. So not the other neighbors. So in an implicit method, you get a system of algebraic equation where there are 25 algebraic equations and they have to be solved together, and we use an iterative method at each time step in an implicit method. Whereas note that in an explicit method, you don't need to solve a system of algebraic equation, system of coupled linear algebraic equation, because in explicit method, if you have 25 equations, each equation there is only one unknown, which I'll discuss little later. So that way, it seems that explicit method is much easier to solve. However, nature is such that if we provide you certain benefit, there is always a price associated with it. So in an explicit method, the price that is associated with it is that whenever you are doing an unsteady simulation, you have to take a time step between two pictures if you want making a movie for temperature. While doing the simulation, if you take a larger time interval between, so if you take basically, note that in grid size, you basically decide delta x, delta y, but with respect to time, we also have in our simulation use delta t. Now this delta t, if you are using an explicit method, note that you have to use a value which is less than a certain value, which will obtain a formula which states for explicit method that the time interval for explicit method will be less than certain value. Whereas implicit method do not have any such stability constraint. Now you may have question, what if you use a larger delta t? In an explicit method, if you use a larger delta t, then your computer simulation will be such that with respect to time, the data will approach towards infinity. You will not get a steady state solution. You will not get a realistic solution. So there is a criteria which basically gives you a limit maximum time interval that you can use for an explicit method that will be presented in stability criteria. Now the second criteria is stopping criteria. Now at each time step, if you are using an explicit method, then you are solving at each time step, each algebraic equation is independent, so you can solve it in a non-iterative way. So in an explicit method, you need only one criteria to stop in time. That's a steady state criteria. So basically, numerically, you have to judge what should be the criteria where the temperature variation has reached to steady state. So basically, stopping criteria is the steady state criteria. So that will be presented here where we'll talk about the when to consider our numerical simulation that it has reached to steady state. There is a formula corresponding to it. So I'll present two different formulas, one corresponding to stability criteria, which gives you the limiting time interval, the maximum delta t that you can take for an explicit method, and a stopping criteria, where I'll give you a formula which will make you understand that at each time step after you have done the simulation, how can you check that whether your results have reached to steady state. Because we want to stop your program at some time. So for steady state problem, you want to stop when it has reached to steady state. Because in this case, when you are making a movie, the picture stops changing. So it doesn't make any sense to do further computations. In an explicit method, this is just to give you an example for an explicit method. Let us take a simplest of the heat conduction, 2D heat conduction problem, where the left wall is 100 degrees centigrade, bottom wall is 200 degrees centigrade, right wall is 300 degrees centigrade, top wall is 400 degrees centigrade. Like in your first problem that you solved in undergraduate heat transfer course, left wall 0, right wall 100 for a 1D heat conduction in a thin sheet. So this is such type of 2D conduction problem, where if you are using an explicit method and you are given an initial condition, let us suppose you have taken this plate from a furnace at 250 degrees centigrade. So all the yellow circles are at 250 and the blue circles are respectively 100, 200, 300, 400 at left, bottom, right and top wall. So you know the first picture. So you know the data for the first picture. All the yellow circles 250, the left one 100, bottom one 200, right one 300, top one 400. So you know the data for the first picture. Now in an explicit method, I have mentioned that all the data for the previous picture is represented by a time is represented by a superscript which is n. So if you have a whenever in your equation for temperature, the subscript is representing the spatial variation. The superscript is representing the temporal variation. So in this equation, wherever the temperature is small n, it means this temperature corresponds to the data of the previous picture. Wherever the temperature has superscript n plus 1, it means this corresponds to the data of the new picture that we do not know. So this is what we do not know, and this is what we know. So you get it now. This is an equation where temperature at point P at n plus 1 is a function of east, west, north, south, neighbor. So this NB are the neighboring values. So I will show you the computational stencil corresponding to an explicit method. So as I said, this if I represent by a sketch that for the new picture at this yellow circle, the formula that we are using in an explicit method, it is a function of how many values. So to put it like a finger as shown here. So to calculate this formula for an explicit method is such. Note that I have shown you the derivation of this by a coefficient form of the linear algebraic equation in the previous lecture on physical law based finite volume method. There are two forms of uh, algebraic final algebraic equations I have shown you: coefficient form and the flux form. So in the coefficient form, I have shown you with chi and lambda, where I've said that lambda is equals to 0 corresponds to explicit method and chi is equals to n. So in this, you get an expression where if I express in terms of a schematic, this is called as computational stencil as shown here. So this formula is such that the temperature of this yellow circle is a function of this 5 values. This is east neighbor, this is west neighbor, this is north neighbor, and this is the south neighbor. So this is for this yellow circle. But note that if you as I said that we derive only one equation, but then we use a loop because we write this equation in an indicial form. I have said that in your undergraduate course you derive an equation like z equals to x into y. In a computational course you derive one equation only, but that z, x, and y are in matrix form. They don't have one value, they have multi values. So you store in a data structure which is matrix. So our formula is z I comma j is equals to x I comma j into y comma j. So we have an initial representation of formula. So note that this is one formula, but however when we program it, wherever you have p, you will write I comma j. Wherever you have capital E, you will write I plus 1 comma j. Wherever you have w, you will write I minus 1 comma j. Not I comma j plus 1, south I comma j minus 1. This corresponds to the implementation detail that I had presented in my textbook in detail. And using those, so note that when we program all these letters corresponding to the subscript, superscript, they change into certain corresponding to the loops, and then we implement this into the computer program. So if you want to use this, you have to use I varying from 2 to 4, j varying from 2 to 4, because here we have 5 points, 3 yellow circle and 2 blue circles. So this is the formula which we will use with a loop I 2 to 4, j 2 to 4. So this is for I is equals to 2, j is equals to 2. When you want to apply this, when you apply the same formula, basically when you loop, what I'm saying that in the loop first is solved for this point, then it goes to this point. When it is going to this point, the neighbor that will involve this will be east, this will be north, this will be south, and this will be west. So I will show you an animated representation of the loop that you implement in the code with certain schematics. This is called a movie. You can call it as an animation for computational stencil. This is at I is equals to 3. This is at I is equals to 4. Now it moves to j is equals to 2, I is equals to 2, 3, 4. J is equals to 3, I is equals to 2, 3, 4. So the computational stencil is such in an explicit method that you can note that there is only one unknown. You are interested in determining the temperature for the new picture, and the formula is such that to calculate a new value, it involves all the neighbors from the previous picture. So if there are 9 yellow circles, your algebraic equation is such that each equation has only one unknown that you can take on the left hand side, which is already there, and you can solve each of these 9 equations independently. Whereas in implicit method, the temperature at this point is a function of its north, south, east, west, and there is only one point from the previous picture. Then in that case, there are 5 unknowns in an implicit method. from the new picture that you don't know. So if there are 9 yellow circles, you will get 9 algebraic equations, but in each equation there will be not more than 5 unknowns. Why I am saying not more than? Because if you are applying it for the border values, and if you have a Dirichlet boundary condition, the blue circle values you already know. So the number of unknown is reduced for the border points values. Okay, now as far as the stability criteria is concerned, one of the observation as far as this conduction corresponds to a diffusion phenomena. So in a diffusion phenomena, physically there are certain expectations based on the understanding of the nature of a diffusion phenomena. So when we are developing our algebraic formulation, we have to ensure certain physical observation. One of the physical observation is this, that even if from the previous picture, these 5 values which are used to calculate the temperature for the new picture, if these 5 values are increasing, then what do you expect? Then the value of this value for the new picture at the same point, this should increase or decrease. And let us suppose if all these 5 values are decreasing, what do you expect? That this value should increase or decrease. So diffusion phenomena is such that it is that we have to ensure that the algebraic equation that we derive should follow certain physical considerations, and through that we derive our stability criteria. So in the classical book on computational fluid flow and heat transfer by Professor Partankar, he had given a very nice way of presenting it. So he had said that, he had presented in his book that in a diffusion phenomena, we gave a certain rule that all the coefficients should have same sign. What is meant by this? So let us suppose you have a formula z is equals to 3x plus 4y. So you can see z has a coefficient of 1, x is a coefficient of plus 3, y has a coefficient of plus 4. So this formula ensures that if x is increasing and y is increasing, then z is also increasing. If x is decreasing, z will decrease. If y is decreasing, but if you have z is equals to 3x minus 4y. If you have minus 4y and if y is increasing, and since it has a coefficient of minus sign, so all the coefficients are not same sign. Z is a coefficient of plus 1, x is a coefficient of plus 3. If y has, instead of plus 4, if it is minus 5, so then in that case, all the coefficients are of not same sign. So then the decrease in y will have an opposite variation on z. It will lead to increase in z, or increase in y will lead to decrease in z. So similarly, in a diffusion phenomena, we want to generate an algebraic equation such that the value at this point should have a similar behavior. If all these 5 values are increasing, this should increase. If all these 5 values are decreasing, then this should decrease. So that way, in our algebraic equation, all the coefficients corresponding to TPN, TE, this is each neighbor n, TWN, T capital N superscript n, T subscript capital S n, all these 5 values, the coefficient of this 5 values for the temperature and the coefficient for this should have same sign. So using that condition, I will first present the coefficient algebraic form for the explicit method. So this slide represents approximate algebraic formulation for temperature using explicit method. I've shown you 2 different forms. First, I've shown you a flux form, and then I've shown you a coefficient form. Coefficient form I've shown you, there is a general form where I have used certain terms like chi and lambda, where lambda is equals to 0 for explicit, 1 for implicit, and half for Frank-Nicolson. This chi is n for explicit, chi is n plus half for Frank-Nicolson, and n plus 1 for implicit. So in that general equation which I presented in the previous lecture, if you substitute chi is equals to n and lambda is equals to 0, For an explicit method, the final form of the linear algebraic equation is like this. Note that in this equation, there is only one temperature which has a superscript n plus 1. There is only one unknown, and all the other values for temperature are known values. Where this coefficient AE, AW, AN, AS, and there is a coefficient of TPN also. This is the fifth value. In the previous slide, I had shown you that the 5 values from the previous picture are east, west, north, south, and the same point value of the previous picture. So note that to calculate TPN, these are the 5 values. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the fifth value. Now, if you see the expression for this AE, AW, and so on, while doing grid generation, let us suppose we are ensuring this that all these geometrical parameters are positive. All of you know that this coefficient of thermal conductivity is always positive. So if all the geometrical parameters we ensure that they are positive, this K is also positive. So you can see that AE is positive, AW is positive, AN is positive, and AS is positive. So if these are the coefficient of TE, TW, TN, and TS. Okay, so this way we are ensuring that all the coefficients on the right hand side, they are positive. However, in this B term, there is a fifth temperature which is involved from the previous picture. Now the coefficient of this TPN, what you observe that it is given by this expression. Now then in this expression, there is a condition under which only this will be positive. This will be positive only when AP naught is greater than sigma A and B. When AP naught, what is sigma A and B? AP naught is greater than AE plus AW plus AN plus AS. So Patanjali has proposed that a rule that all the coefficients should be of same sign to ensure that the effect of the data, the temperature of the previous picture, if it is increasing, then in the new picture, the temperature should increase. If they are decreasing, then they should decrease. So to have the same effect, which is found physically for a diffusion phenomena, all the coefficient has to be positive. So you can see that all the AEW, they are positive, but there is one coefficient for one temperature, that is TPN. There is it will be positive under certain condition. What is that condition? AP naught is greater than summation of all the neighboring coefficients, which is AE plus AW plus AN. So using this condition, I'll present the derivation of an equation which will give us the maximum delta T that we can use in an explicit way. So with this background, we have a condition for the coefficient of TPN to be positive. That is, AP naught should be greater than the summation of coefficient of all the neighbors. Now, if you substitute the expression for AE, AW, AN, and AS, where this delta XC, delta HW are the distance between the neighboring yellow circles. This is between the P and small e. This is between the P and small w. This is between P and capital N. This is between P and capital S. So, and this delta X and delta Y are the width of the control volume, which I had shown in the previous lecture. So if you substitute all these coefficients and the AP naught expression, finally you end up with an expression like this. But first you get an expression like this, where you get less than equal to 1 or this less than equal to 1. But if you use a maximum limiting value, that the maximum delta T, which I am showing you corresponding to stability condition, the limiting value of delta T is given by this expression. Now, if you have a uniform grid, then the distance between the yellow circles, this delta XC, delta XW, and between any two yellow circles, it is delta X. It is same everywhere, because and delta Y, delta, and this is also delta Y. So this, all this, if you substitute as delta X, all this as delta Y, finally for a uniform grid, in a 2D conduction, you get a formula like this: alpha delta T by into 1 by delta X square plus 1 by delta Y square should be less than equal to half. So if you are using a 1D conduction, then there is no delta Y, and then you get a condition for 1D conduction, alpha delta T by delta X square should be less than equal to half. Whereas if you are using a 2D heat conduction, and if this delta X and delta Y are same, then you get alpha delta T by delta X square, this should be less than equal to 1 by 4. So note that if you compare the maximum delta T that is allowed by explicit method in a 1D conduction versus 2D conduction, in a 2D conduction, the maximum value is half of the maximum value that you can take for 1D conduction. Because alpha delta T by delta x square should be less than half for a uniform grid, and with delta x is equals to delta y, if you consider a 2D conduction, then the formula is alpha delta T by delta x square should be less than equal to 1 by 4. So the limiting value is half of the for 2D conduction as compared to the limiting delta T for 1D conduction. This is the final expression for delta T stab for a uniform grid for a 2D conduction. As I said, if delta x equals to delta y in a 2D conduction, then alpha delta T by delta x square should be less than equal to 4, and the limiting delta T is given by this expression for 2D conduction, and for 1D conduction, you get an expression like this. So the delta T stab for 1D conduction is twice of the delta T stab for 2D conduction. So when we are developing a computer program for an explicit method, note that we don't choose delta T arbitrarily. First, we decide, once we do the grid generation, then we know the delta x and delta y, and we use these formulas to determine the maximum delta T that we can use. Otherwise, if we are using a larger value, our solution will, it will diverge. Instead of reaching to a steady state, the temperature values will approach towards infinity, and you will not get any solution. If you are using a very small delta T, rather than using this formula, then you are using unnecessarily losing a time. If you are only interested in the steady state temperature distribution. So most of the unsteady. Okay, so this completes the stability criteria. Now I have shown you the derivation of the limiting maximum delta T that we can afford in an explicit method for a 2D conduction and for 1D conduction. Initially I had shown you for a general non-uniform grid, then I had shown you for a uniform grid, and if the control volume is square where delta x equals to delta y, then I have shown you the simplified form. So starting from a general form for a non-uniform, I've shown you two simplifications for a uniform. Now let us move from stability criteria to what we call as stopping criteria. So stopping criteria or convergence criteria during an unsteady solution. Most of the unsteady state solution finally approaches to steady state condition, and the time step-by-step solution is stopped in a computer by a stopping criteria. So we will use a variable that we will define as unsteadiness, and we will have a convergence tolerance because we want that this variable should reach 0, but computer doesn't understand 0. So we have to define what is 0, what we are considering as 0, whether we are considering 10 to the power minus 4 as 0 or 10 to the power minus 6 as 0. That is called as convergence tolerance that I have introduced in the previous topic of iterative methods for solving for the solution of system of linear algebraic equations. So this unsteady term, which we check whether it is going to 0, is defined by the temporal derivative of the temperature at all the grid points. So what I'm basically trying to say is that once you have got a data for temperature distribution, you compare the data of the present picture with the previous picture for the respective points, and basically you want that the difference of the temperature at the respective points should approach towards 0. However, instead of taking the temperature difference for checking whether the present picture has reached to steady state or not, is not a good criteria, because many times in an explicit method you have to use a very small delta T, and the criteria that you use, that whether you can call the delta T is equals to 10 to the power minus 3 as good enough to define steadiness, varies depending on the delta T that you have taken. So instead of taking the temperature difference between the two pictures, a more strict criteria to check the steady state condition, instead of temperature difference, we take the temperature gradient with respect to time. So note that instead of taking the temperature difference to check for whether our solution has reached to steady state, we take the time-wise derivative of temperature. When del capital T by del small t is approaching 0, then only we say that we reach the steady state condition. So del capital T by del t, if you do forward differencing in time, then note that the spatial coordinate do not change for a particular point I comma j. You can see that when you do forward difference, by forward difference, temperature at the new picture n plus 1 minus temperature at the old picture n divided by delta t. Now this should be, so if there are 25 yellow circles, basically for each yellow circle, you take the temperature of the new picture and the same yellow circle in the previous picture and divide by the time interval that you are taking. And this you want to check. This is what is called as convergence tolerance. Okay, so let us suppose when you are writing a program, you have to define this. If you say that, okay, I define my 0 for convergence as like 10 to the power minus 4, then if for all the 25 yellow circles, you obtain this value, and then we pick the maximum, and then check if that maximum temperature gradient with respect to time is less than 10 to the power minus 4, then obviously the other values will be less than 10 to the power minus 4. So we pick one of the value which corresponds to the maximum temperature gradient, and then we use this condition. However, note that this expression is in a dimensional form. You have studied the importance of non-dimensional in your undergraduate course in fluid mechanics heat transfer. So if we use this above dimensional form of the temperature gradient, this criteria that you have obtained, the unsteady is dependent on thermophysical property, like whether you are considering your plate of copper, aluminum, or any other material. Then this convergence tolerance that you need is dependent on, or the, when you want to compare this, then let us suppose for copper, if I'm using 10 to the power minus 4, I'm getting steady state criteria. But if I use 10 to the power minus 4 for some other material, let us say aluminum, then I find that I'm not getting the proper steady state, because finally when I compare the two pictures, I see that there is a difference. I see physically, there is a difference which I observe numerically, but even in copper, maybe you have got with 10 to the power minus 4, the temperature is not changing, but in aluminum it starts changing. So this unsteadiness is dependent on thermophysical property. It is also dependent on physical as well as boundary condition in the problem. So what is being normally suggested is that instead of using our this stopping criteria in a dimensional form, better approach is so that we can have the same value of epsilon delta t applicable for all the problems, independent of material and independent of the type of, or the boundary conditions and the initial conditions. A non-dimensional form of the above temperature gradient is used as a measure of steadiness. You can use it, there is no harm in using a dimensional form, but more if you are doing a study which involves a lot of materials and you are doing a comprehensive study, then it is suggested that instead of dimensional temperature gradient, you should consider non-dimensional temperature gradient, where you define non-dimensional temperature T minus T1 divided by T2 minus T1. So let us suppose you are considering the problem which I mentioned earlier: left wall 100, bottom wall 200, right wall 300, top wall 400. Then the non-dimensional temperature that we take is basically the difference between the maximum and minimum temperature. So the boundary condition had given the minimum temperature is 100, maximum temperature is 400. So you can take the delta T, which is the temperature difference in the non-dimensionalization, this as 400 minus 100, this is a 300 for that problem. This is a problem dependent. If you have a problem where, let us suppose, left wall is constant wall temperature, bottom wall insulated, right wall constant heat flux, top wall convective boundary condition, then in that problem you have, from the boundary condition, you know two temperatures. One is the left wall temperature, and second is the, in the convective boundary conditions, there is a ambient temperature which is given. So you take that temperature difference in the denominator for non-dimensionalization. So if you use this theta, where you define non-dimensional temperature as this, and if you define your non-dimensional time using the thermal diffusivity, note that the unit of thermal diffusivity is meter square per second. So you non-dimensionalize by the characteristic length. So in any problem that you solve, there are certain geometrical dimensions. Like for flow, when you consider heat conduction in a plate, it has two geometrical dimensions: the length of the plate and the height of the plate. So you can take one of the dimension as the length scale, and so we non-dimensionalize time with respect to non-dimensional length scale, and so the non-dimensional time is represented by alpha T by LC square. So if you use this non-dimensional temperature, non-dimensional time, you can get an expression for del theta by del tau. This is a non-dimensional temperature gradient as a function of dimensional temperature gradient, where now in this expression, the characteristic length scale, the thermal diffusivity, and the temperature difference, which is T2 minus T1, is involved. And this can be expressed as this is written as Fourier number corresponding to the time step alpha delta T by LC square. So you get an expression like this. Note that this temperature that what I'm saying is that if you're developing a code which is in dimensional form, then what I'm basically saying is that you have already obtained the temperature in your program using the dimensional temperature. So using the dimensional temperature, you use this formula. So these are all dimensional temperature values. You calculate this Fourier number corresponding to time interval. This is the thermal diffusivity, which you know corresponding to the material given in your problem. This is the time interval that you have chosen, maybe from stability criteria. If you are using an explicit method, you can take a length scale, you can calculate this Fourier number, and you can use this formula and use this as a convergence criteria, which corresponds to the non-dimensional temperature gradient. This should be less than the convergence tolerance for the, so this term, non-dimensional temperature gradient, as I said, for all the internal grid points, if there are 25 heliocircle, we pick the maximum of it, and we define unsteadiness as one value corresponding to the maximum temperature gradient, and that we check for compare with the, okay, so here the LC is the characteristic length scale, and the time is non-dimensional with respect to this, sorry, the temperature is non-dimensional with this temperature difference, which corresponds to the two characteristic temperature that we know from the boundary conditions. So the characteristic length scale and this temperature difference finally lead us to a non-dimensional definition of a non-dimensional temperature. There are certain problems which involve constant heat flux boundary condition. For those, note that the theta non-dimensionalized is done in a little different way, where along with the heat flux we involves length scale and K to non-dimensionalized, which you can find in heat transfer books. So finally, this slide shows you the that if you are developing your computer program, where in your computer program, the temperature that you are in your program corresponds to dimensional value, then you use this formula and pick the maximum for convergence. Let us suppose you are developing a computer program in a non-dimensional form. Note that while you are doing an experiment, you do not have any choice. All the experiment, you have to choose a particular material, let us say in heat conduction. Okay, so all the experiment are done in a dimensional form. However, when their results are presented, we convert the dimensional value to non-dimensional value to present our experimental result, or in a much more comprehensive way. Results are mostly presented in a non-dimensional form. However, when we are doing computation, we have the freedom and luxury that in our computer program, we can write a computer program where the variable for the temperature can be in dimensional form or in non-dimensional form. So depending on which form of the in your program that you have developed, whether you developed a dimensional program or a non-dimensional program. If you have developed a dimensional program, then use this formula for convergence. If you have developed a non-dimensional program for temperature distribution, this is the formula that you use. So this is the expression that we use as a stopping criteria for the unsteady solutions. We start with an initial condition and we want to stop when the picture stops changing. So numerically, these conditions make us realize that we have reached to steady state and we can stop the unsteady simulations. Note that in explicit method, there is only one loop corresponding to time, because for each yellow circle, we solve independently. Whereas in implicit method, other than this time loop, there is an inner loop, because at each time step, the system of linear algebraic equation is solved by a method that I had presented in finite difference method, the iterative method. So note that there is another stopping criteria for each time step in an implicit method to solve the system of coupled linear algebraic equation. There is another convergence tolerance. This is a steady state convergence tolerance. There you have to use a Iterative convergence tolerance. Now the convergence condition that we use for implicit method is basically the convergence condition that we have used in iterative method, which I presented in my previous topic on essentials of numerical methods. Okay, where we basically take the difference of temperature between the two iterations and compare it with the convergence tolerance. So in this lecture, I started with finite difference method for the algebraic, to derive the algebraic equation for the blue circles or the boundary grid points. And then I have presented the two types of numerical criteria, which basically gives us certain equations. The first corresponding to stability criteria, where we have got an equation for the maximum delta T or the limiting delta T that we can use in explicit method. The second criteria is basically in an unsteady simulation, what should be the formula that we should use for stopping criteria to judge that we have reached the steady state. With this, I had come to the end of this lecture, and the details can be found in the chapter 5 of the companion book on Introduction to CFD Development Application Analysis. And this is the website in which you can download the supplementary material of the book freely.